I have traveled the cricketing world, and so I've collected two things: the phone numbers of random taxi drivers and overseas SIM cards. Rideshare apps have fixed the first part, and Sally is doing the second. Now, all you need is their eSIM on whatever plan works for you. You activate it, and you can use it anywhere in the cricketing world. It helps you save money. It is a global solution to a global problem. Stop fiddling with tiny SIMs and get the one that does it all. Go to Sally.com good areas and use the code good areas to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. Fly free with Sally.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Good Areas Live. I'm Behram Kazi, who you can find at DefMango on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Jared Kimber, who you can find literally everywhere. And we are here to review the first test match between Australia and the West Indies in Barbados. The West Indies had been tasked with chasing 301. They were bowled out for 141 and thus hammered ultimately by 159 runs. But Jared, if you look at the first 2 days of this test match, I know it ends in 3 days, but it wasn't as one-sided in those first 2 days, was it?
No, they should have bowled Australia out for 100, right? They should have ended up with almost a 100-run lead. And that's even before you get to the whole DRS thing that ended up happening. But just if they just taken their catches, they dropped Usman Khawaja early on. But if you go back, and I think I put this on Twitter at the time, they were 100 for 3, and it was about the worst 100 for 3 I've ever seen in my life. Like it was. It was so fluky and lucky, and there were half runouts, and they were leading edges and play and misses, and even when they defended the ball, nowhere near the middle of the bat, they pushed the ball up in the air. It was they were really unlucky, the West Indies. But you know, I'm sure we'll talk about the umpiring. They just dropped a lot of catches as well. If they take a normal amount of catches in this game, they're probably a big chance of winning it. I mean, they dropped Travis Head on the morning of day 3, right?
Yeah, so basically in the first innings with the new ball, they dropped Khwaja twice. Then at the start of the third innings, they dropped Sam Constas in the first over twice, and then they dropped Travis Head at the morning of day 3. And there are 2 other drops, right? 7 in total. And that's the same number of catches that India dropped not too long ago. But these were easier chances. It was atrocious slip catching, and it's really, really tough to win a game of test cricket. Yeah, exactly.
Indians was over a long period of time. Like as you said, they got Constas twice in one over. Like it was bizarre at how bad they were in the game all the way through. And yeah, they should have won the test match. I told you guys all that on day 1. There's nothing in my mind that thinks they shouldn't have done it. The drops are the thing they could control. We know their bat's not very good. So they were like 47 for 1. Chasing 300, and I was like, oh, this is the moment where everyone believes they could chase, and then they were 47 for 3 or 47 for 4 or something straight after that, right?
Yeah,
and
they were like 61 for 6, not too later.
Yeah, I tell you the full story. I was watching the cricket, and 47 for 1. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to pay more attention to this. But at the same time, the boys wanted to watch Blade Runner. And they put on the version of Blade Runner with the narration on it. And I was like, no. We're not watching the narration Blade Runner. That's a terrible cut of Blade Runner. We need a proper version. And in the 2 minutes it took me to find the other one and put it up for them, in that time, they lost 2 more wickets. And I don't even know how one batter had come out and the other one had gone in that time, Behram.
Yeah, I mean, there were back-to-back wickets, right? Hazelwood was on a hat-trick.
And they've really let themselves down.
Yeah. It was quite chaotic, right? And I mean, we all know that West Indies struggle when it comes to batting. I don't even think we need to waste any time over there. But as you said, the catches were, something that they could control. And 7 is a touch too many. And these weren't terribly difficult chances. These were regulation slip catches. No. And yeah, they dropped 5 off Shabaz Joseph. And 3 of those 7 catches were dropped by Brandon King alone. Justin Greaves had a pretty terrible time in the slips as well. And it's not like Australia didn't drop catches. They dropped like 3 to 4 as well. Carey dropped another sitter. 2 drop catches for him in consecutive test matches. Cam Green drops one at Gully. That's when you know shit's hit the fan, right? Like, that never happens. And then there were like a couple of half chances for... Yeah,
Brandon King's game. Correct me if I'm wrong. He made a golden duck. He was batting well and left a ball that bowled him. And then he dropped... Is it 3 catches? You said 3?
Uh-huh. That's one hell of a test match debut.
One of the worst test matches anyone has ever played. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think. Who's there's a famous one, isn't there, where it is Marcus Tate's dad. Is it Fred Tate comes in ahead of like a really good player, and it was like a contentious selection decision, and they went wrong, and he gets smashed everywhere. And then I think he's like the last man out as well. No, sorry, I don't think he takes a lot of wickets. He might not get smashed, but then he drops a really important catch, which is why Australia set them a little bit more. And then he's the last man out. Like we've had some bad ones. Gavin Hamilton, did Gavin Hamilton make a pair and also get smashed? I think
I think so.
We've had some bad debuts. Bryce McGain, let's put him up there. I think all things considered, this is one of the worst test matches that someone has played. Like it really is right up there with just, it's unfortunate, but these things happen.
Yeah. I remember when he was batting on 20 odd in the first innings, or West Indies' first batting innings, Cricinfo had a headline which said that fluent King is leading West Indies charge. And I was like, in our group chat, what game are they watching? He hasn't looked fluent to me. Khawaja's control percentage was 79%. We both saw the innings and how lucky he was. He was just basically spamming the pull and getting dropped and beaten like a million times. It was some interesting stuff that we got to see in this test match. And batting was very, very hard.
Yeah, I mean, the way that West Indies bowled the first innings, they bowl them out for anywhere between 80 and 120. There was a little period where I think they were a little bit too short. As you said, Kawhi just decided to pull everything because he couldn't play anything else, right? So yeah, I think there was that little period where they probably didn't bowl perfectly. But by that stage, I think they were frustrated because they couldn't work out what thing was still in, and it was partly the drop catches. But we also have to get on to the DRS because
we do.
Wow.
We have to talk about this. Like, look, there were 4 decisions that I counted, and all 4 of those went against the West Indies. Darren Sammy, and this, by the way, is the start of his red ball coaching tenure, he also raised questions against Adrian Hallstock's third umpiring. And it was so bad, the TV umpiring, that, on day 1, you have that catch where Travis Head is declared not out. And you're like, okay, maybe it's one of those foreshortening things. And even though we feel that there were fingers underneath the ball, I guess the umpire is treading with caution. And then when the West Indies are batting, clearly Alex Carey, he grasses the ball, or it's similar to the Stark catch in the Ashes, right? Where you get some assistance from the ground when you catch it. That's declared out. And then there were 2 LBW calls. Roston Chase clearly had a deflection. He was given out. But when we had the other LBW shot, I think it was Cam Green, that's when the ball seemed to have first flicked the front pad, then the bat, then the back pad. And some people, and you were even mentioning how it could have been bat hitting the back pad first, but there was just no consistency. I don't have issues with the umpire leaning towards one particular side in terms of these are the sort of decisions I'm going to make. But when his decisions contradict themselves and you're not being consistent with them, that's where it's a major issue. And once again, the way you've been echoing, that same sentiment that we need specialist third umpires, I feel like this is a perfect case study for it.
Yeah, it was bad. The Travis Head one, you look at that and you think, as you said, I think you can make an argument where you're like, I'm not sure. I saw it live, and I can tell you what I did. I was betting on that game, and I just put all the money on the wicket because I was like, he definitely hit that, and it definitely carried. Right, that was my first instinct. Yeah. Then you have a look at the replay, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand that there's maybe a missing frame here, but I don't think they got enough other angles to really show us anything. And
true.
If he definitely hit it, and you're not taking the umpire's word, then isn't the most obvious thing from the video footage we saw that carried, right?
Yes.
It's different. This isn't a situation where the umpire, I don't know that carried. We're not taking the umpire's word anymore, right? Are we? We're looking at it independently. If we are looking at that independently, I don't know what resources he could see that suggested to him, right, that was not carrying, right? Yep. I just don't understand how that was the case. Secondly, if I was to go to the other one, as you said, with the Alex Carey one, right?
Yep, Alex Carey.
If he's already set a precedent at this stage, right, for saying
true
that if there's enough evidence, I'm not gonna give these things out, and he completely goes back on that. You've got that. Who was the inside edge on the LBW one?
It was Roston Chase, wasn't it? I think it was Roston Chase.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, fine. I think he got that wrong. I don't think that was the worst one. But he got it wrong. But let's just go back to, is it the Cameron Green LBW?
Again, it contradicts it.
Okay, so
the Chase LBW.
So he goes against his previous decisions. So he's got no consistency, Holdstock, within the way that he is umpiring in this game. But separate to that, if you go back and you have a look, this is why we need special third umpires. And I know everyone's bored of me saying this, but this game is a perfect example of why we need specialist third umpires. Because you and I saw this slightly different to each other, right? My first thing was, wait a minute, what's happened here? And your first thing was, oh no, it's another howler. And then I was like, no, I think what has happened is the bat has hit the back pad at the same time the ball is going past the pad on the front pad. And and Holdstock has seen the bat hitting the back pad and assumed that is what has happened, right? That is the noise from that. What he hasn't done, though, is look for 2 or 3 different angles to make sure that the ball did not hit the front pad, right? At the same time that the bat hits the pad. He's just gone, bat definitely hit the pad, that's the sound, right?
Yes.
That's because if you are umpiring in real time, right, you probably do give that decision not out. Like if he was just to look at that again, even with his eyes zoomed in the way it was, I can understand that. Third umpiring is so very different because you have to make sure that the actual sound is from the thing that you think it is and not could be 2 sounds at the same time. Right, because a ball hitting the pad and a bat hitting the pad will make a similar wave on the thing. And if they both happen at the same time, my guess is they cancel each other out on the graphic. Right, I could be wrong. Right, I'm not. I don't want to pretend to be an expert on this. But do you know who else is not an expert on this? Adrian Holdstock. Right, and we know that because he's a new umpire and he hasn't done third umpire all that much because most new umpires haven't done third umpire all that much. But the point is, and this is why I keep going on about this. If you put these people into these situations, they are under time pressure, right? They don't understand all the technology that's in front of them. And if they haven't done it hundreds or thousands of times before, they look for the first available bit of evidence. And I think that comes back to the whole Travis Head one, right, as well, where he looked at there's a optical illusion happening there that we all know because of foreshortening and everything else, where even though it looks like the ball goes straight into the keeper's glove, right? It does also look like there might be a missing frame where it's hit the ground and it's bounced up. Like it does, if you look at it really closely, I think you could make that argument. That is why you need to look at 2, 3, 4 different angles, right? And you need to zoom in cameras and everything else to be able to work out if you're right or not. So what he's done is he's gone on the fact that he had a hunch rather than the actual evidence in front of him. The evidence in front of him is that Travis Head was caught behind, right? That is the evidence. I'm not saying that 5% of people wouldn't give that nod out because I think there is a percentage of people who would give that nod out based on what Holdstock said. But it's his job to get to the evidence. The Cameron Green one is another perfect example of he's gone on the first available bit of evidence, right? Or his hunch, and he hasn't looked at all the different angles. That is the difference between a specialist umpire who understands all that technology and what we've had. And in a situation like this, look, it's up to you whether you want to say the drops or the DRS played the bigger role. But they both played huge roles in the fact that the West Indies lost this game, right? Like
absolutely
crucial at crucial times, really important, all those sorts of things happen. And so in a low scoring game, having a couple of those decisions go against you eventually played its part. I still think the better team won, right? And if you really look at this game, I think Australia had the worst of the batting conditions on day 1. And West Indies had the worst of the batting conditions on day 3, right? And Australia handled the worst of their batting conditions far better than the West Indies did, right? Like, I think you would have to say that. And the way that Australia bowled on day 2 when the pitch was evening out was magnificent, right? Or day 1 and day 2, however you want to look at that. I thought was absolutely magnificent, right? The fact that they kept themselves in that game. So I give them a lot of credit for that. But the West Indies were completely screwed over by a bunch of what I would call presentable mistakes. Presentable errors. Preventable. I'll get the words right eventually, Bayra.
I mean, Adrian Holdstock did stuff them up a fair bit. They are responsible for the drop catches, but all 4 of those decisions going against the West Indies. And then, as we mentioned, no consistency in the decisions, which is why, for the specialized role, there should be specialized umpires. But then again, the thing that you mentioned just now, 14 wickets fell on day 1, so it was tough work out there. 16 wickets fell on day 3, and we saw the ball dying a lot, right? The ball was keeping low. the best of the conditions for batting were on day 2, where only 10 wickets fell, and Australia did well. So it's not like they don't deserve this victory. It's just that West Indies would be, you can't blame them for being hard done by as far as the third umpiring is concerned.
No, I mean, they should be. And I think it's completely fair that they would have a look at this. There's no doubt about that if the umpiring was normal, or West Indies had caught a normal percentage of their chances, West Indies might still win this game. Like, I think it's that simple. I really do think it's that simple. And in the end, Australia hasn't just won it by a little bit. So you've got to give Australia credit for fighting their way back into this game a couple of times. And the fact that, again, I think someone just put it up, Arco just put it up, like, again, shit batting was just saved by their pace bowling attack, right? Like, and we've seen it so many times. But West Indies, I still think the West Indies, there was a time on day 1 when they got a little bit impatient of just bowling the right line and length for a little while. And on a wicket like that, they had to roll Australia for 120, I think, in that game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And once they got to 180, Australia was in the game a little bit more to begin with. And then the second thing was of just allowing people to, Australia doesn't have a very good number 3, right? And Cameron Green didn't have to come in quite as early because they kept dropping Sam Constas, right? Then we knew that Australia, on this pitch, their tail was going to struggle to make a lot of runs for them. And all you needed was the early wicket of Head, and you could go through that. And instead, they dropped Head as well. So that's the second innings. And it was actually the first innings that was probably more important.
And the two chances when the decisions, the umpiring decisions that go against the West Indies when they're batting are of Chase and Hope, who were doing really well for them. But anyway, we have to talk about a few performances as well. But before that, we will take a short break. You guys are watching Good Areas Live with Jared and Behram, and we will be back in like half a minute. So go nowhere.
Cricket boards actually make watching their games almost impossible. I spend almost as much time trying to find where I can view it as I do actually following the action. That is why I have traveled the cricketing world, and so I've collected 2 things: the phone numbers of random taxi drivers and overseas SIM cards. Rideshare apps have fixed the first part, and Sally is doing the second. Now, all you need is their eSIM on whatever plan works for you. You activate it, and you can use it anywhere in the cricketing world. It helps you save money. It is a global solution to a global problem. Stop fiddling with tiny SIMs and get the one that does it all. Go to Sally.com Good Areas and use the code Good Areas to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. Fly free with Sally.
Welcome back to Good Areas Live. You guys are with Jared and Behram, and I think we should probably start with Australia's pace attack, because Arco mentioned it and how they're so balanced, and they've been doing this for year after year after year. I mean, it's been over a decade now, I believe. And Mitch Starc was incredible with the new ball. He was the star of the show in the first innings, 3 for 65, and he took a wicket in the last innings as well, but there was a drop catch off his bowling. However, he was not West Indies' wrecker in chief. That guy was Josh Hazlewood, who after a underwhelming, I would say, World Test Championship final, he came up trumps in this game. 2 for 41 in his first dig and 5 for 43 in his second. He was on a hat-trick. His nip backers were basically unplayable. Batters were going shoulders, arms and losing their top of off. And 7 for 84 in this test match. It was a goated performance. And I mean, he's back to averaging, 13, 14 for Australia?
Or 12 in this game, fantastic. He was... the conditions perfectly suited him, especially in the second innings. And in the first innings, he probably should have got more wickets in the first innings as well. I think he was at the World Test Championship. He wasn't quite on top of his game. He'd been bowling really well for a long period of time in international cricket, in T20 cricket and everything else. And that test match maybe didn't suit him. This is a surface that is probably even more a Josh Hazlewood than anything else. Because, once you get Josh Hazlewood with any sort of lateral movement and inconsistent bounce, and he had the combination of both in this at times, I don't know how you play him. And also the West Indians there's a bunch of the West Indians who have a bit of a weird technique, and they get their pads. A lot of them do get their pads in the way. And then they sort of play around their pads. So they either get bowled or LBW. So there is an element of that as well. But yeah, he was, I mean, I was watching him when he as you said, he was on the hat trick.
Yeah.
He was unplayable for about 5 overs. Like, I mean, literally unplayable. I don't know what you would have to do to not be dismissed by Josh Hazlewood in that period.
Like, for instance, how do you play the Casey Carty delivery, right? It's really, really difficult to negotiate that ball. And even though Brandon King in the first innings, he left that ball, even if he had tried to play it, it might have hit top of off, right? That's just how impeccable his line and length was, Hazelwood. And if we come to Australia's batting, let's talk about the bad stuff before the good stuff, I suppose. The Sam Constas opening and Cam Threen experiment didn't exactly go to plan. They missed Steve Smith dearly as well in the top order. But like Australia do not have an opener and a number 3, and Khwaja is also struggling. And I mean, what do they even do in the next game? Bring Manas back? Open with him? What?
That Sam Constas innings was about, or match, was about as bad as I've seen a top order player. It reminded me of a really random one, which was Nick Compton in the second innings at, was it Leeds or Durham? It was certainly somewhere up north, where he was clearly playing for his spot. And I think they were trying to put on a declaration total, and he makes like, I want to say, God, sorry, Compo. I want to say he makes like 10 off 60 balls or something ridiculous. And you were just watching him going, oh my God, he shouldn't be out there. Like this is actually a very, very unfortunate for him. But he couldn't hit the ball off the square at all. And it does happen, obviously. Was it Keaton Jennings? Might have been another one.
Yeah, I can remember Keaton Jennings struggle like that.
At one point where there's 2 English players, there's been a couple of Bangladeshis guys, and so obviously some West Indians where you're just like, you shouldn't be out there.
I mean, he was.
I'm just having a look at Nick Compton.
Was...
Nick Compton, I've got it here. He made
look at that.
22 not out of 38 balls. When it was just awful all the way through, where it looked like and I think it was Sri Lanka. Yeah, they were playing Sri Lanka, and it was like he wasn't. They weren't chasing many runs, but he didn't have the ability to hit the ball off the square. And it was 9 of 34 in the first innings. He just had lost it, and I think they played him in one more test after that. I can't see how it would help Australia for Sam Constas to play in the next test, unless the wicket is flat as hell, and they're just like, if it's flat as hell, let's get him out there. Let's hope he gets a couple of 30s and he gets his confidence back. But his technique was all over the shop. Like he didn't look like he knew exactly how to stand.
True. And I mean, look, he was dismissed by Shamar Joseph 4 times in 2 innings, right? If you think about it, right? He was dropped twice, and then he dismissed him twice as well. But yeah, of course, he's 19. He'll get better. Might be too soon, especially on this sort of a surface. And then, of course, they're wasting Cam Green at 3. Cam Threen is just a bad ploy. Coming to the stuff that did work, right? Khwaja got some lucky runs, but sure, he'll probably stay in the side. Travis Head was player of the match, of course. He scored twin 50s, 59 and 61. Got lucky. I mean, he was his punchy self, slashing the ball, driving the ball, and whipping it as well. But there were moments where he really rode his luck, right? The dismissal, the dropped catch, and a couple of edges as well. But we know a lot about Head. We don't need to discuss him. I want to talk about the 2 other guys. Let's start with Alex Carey. Very, very important counter-attacking 65. He actually got his half century of 40 deliveries, and that was his fastest half century ever in Test cricket. I love the way he comes down the track and goes for those big shots up and over. He also has a fantastic pull shot, and I saw him ramp in this innings as well. So he's really understood his role perfectly now in this team. And if I look at his career, Alex Carey's career in isolation in the last 2 years, I'd say it's just been dramatically better than what he was before.
Just you talking about the ramp has reminded me that John Campbell went out ramping Josh Hazelwood, which on a day when Josh Hazelwood was unplayable, it's a hell of a way to go out.
That's true.
Yeah, we looked at his numbers coming into the World Test Championship, and the average is not great for Carey, right? Like he's not an average player, and he might never be an average player. Yeah. He's almost more like an old school wicketkeeper in that he just keeps playing really important impact knocks, right? Like Australia's in trouble and he comes out and he slashes or he blocks or he does whatever he has to do. He hustles and he finds a way to make runs. And I think, with that, it's a really, really important player. I've said this before. I think Australia, the way that they line up at the moment, would prefer to have Inglis in the side, right? And probably prefer to have Inglis batting at 6 and Webster batting at 7. If Webster's going to play, right? Things change a little bit if Cameron Green comes in everything else. But
Cameron Green can bowl. When he can bowl, I don't know how Webster.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So when he's bowling properly. So they've got some incredible flexibility to be able to go with that. And having, let's say, Green does go back to number 6, bats at number 6, and then they have Inglis at number 7. That's a very deep lineup, right? Like that's like that is a very, very strong middle core sort of area. However, Bayram, Kerry just keeps finding ways to be useful to this side, and it's. As you said, his keeping is a bit of a concern, I think, at the moment. But there is no concern with the way that he is finding ways to impact games with the bat. He's done it quite a lot.
He's the reason they ultimately post a target of 300. And there might be, he might not be scoring a lot of runs, but they're always important runs. That's what I've noticed with Carey, and they're at a brisk pace as well. But Bo Webster is an even better case study. What is it, 4 or 5 test matches now? He just continues to score runs. He has his very apparent limitations. We're talking about it in the group. We're like, oh, he's an LBW candidate. He's going to go out LBW or bold. He does go out bold in the first innings. And then, I feel like this is a guy who understands those limitations and cashes in where he knows he's good. Like, he will never spare any width. He has a very good cover drive. Honestly, I'm quite surprised. On the up, he plays it really nicely. And he also offers you a lot in the field, and he can bowl both medium pace and off spin. So whilst Webster might not retain his place in the side in the long term, he hasn't really taken this little run for Australian Test cricket for granted at all. He's made the absolute most of it, and I love that for him. He's a proper Shield cricket hustler.
Look, he's a professional cricketer who knows his strengths and his weaknesses quite well in a way that Sam Constance does not. Right,
yes.
Like I'm not comparing them as cricketers, but just Sam Constance doesn't know what his best style is yet, and he obviously has incredible hand-eye coordination and a lot of confidence, but he doesn't have all the rest of it. Bo Webster's not on that level of talent, but he understands exactly how he has to score runs. He came in and he was doing everything he could not to go out LBW. He was over accentuating playing straight because he was terrified of doing it. And he probably should have been out LBW, and he was a little bit lucky that the balls, hit him just outside the line or a little bit too high, and, a few different options that he had there. But he's just very good at that sort of stuff. And look, I think on a pitch like this, we saw his batting limitations even more starkly at times, especially when he first came out the bat. Yeah. But he finds a way because he's a professional, right? And as you said, I don't know what the long-term run is with a Bo Webster, but on this pitch, how many wickets did he get in the second innings? Did he pick up any?
I don't think he picked up any wickets in the second innings, but in the first innings, he picked up 2. I remember that.
Yeah, and they brought him on in the second innings when they didn't need to. It would have made more sense to finish them off with the seamers, but they brought him on because they were like, these are conditions that are going to suit Bo Webster. And he didn't get a wicket, but he certainly bowled well enough to get one. And I think that's another really good sign. They're trying to use him in situations they think it will actually help him. And look, he's just a fantastically clever cricketer. And I love cricketers who develop late and also who take pride in all 3 forms of parts of the game.
Yeah, he is a 3-faceted cricketer. Anyway, we've discussed Australia enough, just a bit on the West Indies before we go. We do have to discuss their bowling, of course, and I guess Shamar Joseph is an interesting one right now. 5 catches dropped off his bowling, gets 4 for 46 in the first innings. Unlucky not to get a fifer. And then he also ends up with 5 for 87 in his second dig. 9 for 133 overall, a quick fire 44 of 22 with the bat as well. And he's averaging he's averaging 16 with the ball versus Australia and has 22 wickets versus them. Now, as good as that story is, and as prolific as it is, during the test match, there were some developments about Shamar Joseph, and there were some allegations as well. And it kind of became a really hard watch for me personally on day 3. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, it's been reported a little bit now, of course, so you can Google it and find the full details of it. But multiple women have come forward.
11.
With 11, yeah. So like multiple, that's a lot. I suppose you're right. Multiple could be 3. It's a lot more than 3, isn't it? It's a lot of women who've come forward with allegations of, sexual assault veering to much more seriously than that as well against Shamar Joseph. And it is weird because this is his second greatest test match. We don't know if we're going to see him play in the next little while. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how Cricket West Indies is going to handle this. Like it's a really, really fascinating one. Obviously, I think, in good areas, we always are going to say that, we think about the victims in this situation. He's just a cricketer, right? Like it's just a person doing his job. It's the victims and all the people, the alleged victims, I should say, and all the people involved there. It's an interesting one that it's taken so long to come out and everything else, and there's lots of talk there. But yeah, it did kind of ruin what was a good little story, right? That Shamar Joseph
Really
speeding up on the Australians, and then I was watching him bat, and I was just like, I just kind of want you to go out. I don't want to think about you anymore at the moment.
Let's be real. We would have started the show with Shamar Joseph, regardless of the result, right? Had it been different, and here we are, where he's gotten 2 minutes, and all we can hope for is that those victims get their justice, and there's a thorough investigation, I suppose. Just get to the bottom of this. He wasn't the only West Indian bowler to do well. Jayden Seales picked up 6 wickets in this game, 5 for 60 in his first dig. And look, I am very, very big on Jayden Seales. I've been saying this to you for a year, back when I was in England as well. His average currently is 22.22. I think he has around 83 wickets, and his strike rate of 38.7 is the second best strike rate for any test bowler in history with a minimum of 75 wickets. He's behind George Lohmann only. So, I mean, I feel like the hype is real.
Look, I think he's very good. I think he's very limited. So, I'm trying to think of a bowler. Do you know what he's like? He's
not express. We know that. He's around 135 clicks.
Yeah, he's like the good version of Cook that England just picked. Right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, because he's a bit quicker than Cook, and he's a bit stronger, I think, all things considered. But they're very similar bowlers. When the wicket doesn't suit them, they look terrible, right? Yeah. But when the wicket does suit them, you're like, they could get a wicket any ball here. Like they have plenty of skills, and so yeah, that's kind of how I think that's kind of how I feel about him at his best. And I talked him up quite a bit when he was very young. I still think he needs an extra 5Ks of pace. I don't think he needs to be that quick. There you go. So Ben Jones has said that he gets the most lateral movement out of all fast bowlers. So yeah,
okay.
I'm not massively surprised about that. Some of the balls he gets, he's got the ability like Siraj to just make a ball move like a spinner. Yeah. He's more consistent than Siraj, but he doesn't have Siraj's top end either. So, he's a bit like Siraj. He can be a frustrating bowler, but when it works, he's very hard to play. And he goes through like 4 or 5 over periods where it's just like, he's probably just going to get 2 wickets here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just before we move on to the super chats, I want to ask you, Jared, what the fuck was Jomel Warrican doing in the side? Why did they need to play him if he was only going to bowl like 6 overs in the game?
Isn't that just that? I don't think either team knew it was going to seam as much as it did.
Yeah,
right?
I suppose.
I would assume that is the case, that they just went in thinking, there'll be a little bit of seam movement, and because there was talk about it being inconsistent bounce, wasn't there? I think coming into the game.
And there was inconsistent bounce on day 3. Some balls were really dying down, right? It was almost unplayable. In fact, I would be interested to see what the rating is for this surface.
Yeah, what was Head's one was one of the lowest, wasn't it? And then a couple of the West Indian ones didn't get up at all. So, look, Jamal Warrican is certainly their frontline spinner. I wonder if they didn't need him, but I don't think it penalised them because they're playing Greaves. Greaves is such an interesting cricketer because he's probably not good enough with the bat or with the ball.
Yeah.
He allows them to bowl Roston Chase. So between Greaves and Roston Chase, they kind of have their 4th bowler, right? Which is 2 go to a 5th bowlers. But then they have Jamal Warrican in there as well. So it's like, I'm not sure you need to play both of the Chase and Greaves and then also have an extra spinner if you're going to go that way. But the other problem is that every time I think they wanted to bowl Warrican, there was left-handers at the crease, and it was quite often Travis Head, all right? And they were just like, can we do that?
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, it was Darren Sammy's first test match as head coach and Roston Chase's first test match as captain. So hopefully they'll get the tactics better. Let's move on to the super chat, shall we? First, we've got Oz, and he asks, an ultimate World 11 team that tours like British Irish Lions in rugby every 4 years. Where's the calendar window for it? That's my question.
That's a very good point. Do you know what the British Irish Lions is? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't know. Is it like a Harlem Globetrotters type of thing?
It's a weird one. I don't know how it really started. I have looked into the history of it once or twice, but I've forgotten. But essentially, there was, rather than playing as individuals, nations in rugby, which they do, they form like a British Isles type of team, and they and they play every 4 years, a bit like what happens in the Ryder Cup, I suppose, where you have the Americans playing the rest of, is it Europe or the rest of the world? It's Europe, isn't it, in the Ryder Cup? So it's a bit like that. It's a bit like the Ryder Cup. And what it ends up being is it's less about the sport and it's more about the sort of the event, right? And you see the best players in the world going up against each other in a way that you don't always. So sometimes they go to South Africa, and sometimes they go to Australia or New Zealand. Depending on how it works. It's a really interesting concept. We tried this in the 90s, right? We had World 11s, we had Asian 11s, which both make sense. Rest of the World 11s, sorry. We had World 11s after that. If India and Pakistan, had a different kind of relationship, a Asian 11 versus rest of the world 11 would be great, right? Like there is a way happen,
right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It happened before. It wasn't marketed particularly well, and it wasn't at a time when people really understood how to get the most out of those things. But yes, we could do that again. But as Bayram said, it's more about the scheduling now. There really isn't a time to do that. So the only way this would work is, I think it would be cool, and let's forget India, Pakistan at the moment, but let's just pretend that is sorted out one day. I don't know why we would, but let's just pretend it is. There is an element of, it would be really cool to have an Asian team, play a rest of the world team in a proper series and things like that. And I think for cricket fans, it would be huge. The argument for or against it is about casual fans. So the Ryder Cup and the British Lions actually work for casual fans, right? When we did the World 11s originally, and when we did the rest of the World 11s and the Asian 11s and all these different things that we've tried, it's generally been the hardcore fans that have watched it, which doesn't actually give you any money. If you can find a way to do it beyond that, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've got this last chat. I'm not going to bother with the name. He says, Jared, did you burst a coronary when you heard the president of Denver Nuggets talk about trading Nikola Jokic? Wow, that's happening, eh?
I think it was the owner. Well, the owner's son, who is also the president. He didn't talk about. This is where, and I've done press conferences like this before, where sometimes in the press conference, that what the person has said is not exactly what has come out of their mouth. I think you and I have talked about this before. We did one with Umar Gul once, where we knew he had misspoken, and he basically accidentally slandered Ricky Ponting, but it's not what he meant. And everyone in the room decided to not go with exactly what he said and go with what we thought he was trying to say, because it would have been a huge news article all around the world, and we were pretty sure. That doesn't happen anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens now is we get the press thing, and you cut it up into I think it's about a 15-second clip. And basically what he's saying is, we don't want to get into a position where the only thing we can do to get out of it is by trading Joker, right? That's what he's trying to say in that clip. Instead, what he says is, he basically sort of says, if everything goes wrong, we're going to have to trade Joker, which is actually fundamentally true, right? That is actually what, Chicago Bulls and LeBron, all these teams might say something like that. But what they're trying to say is, we have to make all the decisions right to make sure we don't get anywhere near that thing. And you go on the other thing. If this was, and I've listened to 3 or 4 different Nuggets podcasts, because it was quite a big story, as you can imagine, in Denver Nuggets world.
Yeah.
And what happens is, you get to a point where the people who were in the room all understood that he kind of misspoke a little bit. It wasn't exactly what he meant, and he fumbled it, right?
Yeah.
That, unfortunately, you don't get a second chance anymore. In the old days, the press would be like, okay, we don't think he meant this. Or they would just go up and clarify it before they'd write the headlines. Now, that clip went online, 20 seconds, completely out of context, and he looks like an idiot. Now, Josh Kroenke should not be saying fucking stupid things in front of a camera. Don't get me wrong. If you're running an NBA team, right, you should know that saying anything about trading the best player you've ever had in history, the only player to ever give you a championship, is going to cause headlines. But we see this with, Galton Gambier has these slip-ups, right? The whole English team has these slip-ups. And in the old days, you could go back and you could kind of go, did you actually mean? Oh, no. What he meant was this. He just misspoke, right? And you and I have done it on these podcasts, right? We are aware of that. And so
sometimes you're in a press conference and what you mean to say is that you were struggling for runs before and you end up saying you couldn't buy a run. It happens to everyone, guys. It's a very normal thing.
I can't wait for you to come over to the UK and just get you and Ben Duckett to hug. And I've done it many times before. And, I asked the question of, if you go back and have a look at the Red Inker I did with Brian Lara, I asked the question of Brian Lara. Well, I knew exactly what I was trying to say, but I framed it slightly differently. And he thought it was like I was saying he was lucky to be that good, which is not what I was saying. What I was trying to say is, you're so good against spin because of the confluence of all these different events that have happened to you Is that how you would see it? Which eventually he agreed with, right? But after he got his back up because he thought I was saying that he was lucky to be in that kind of situation. So these things happen, but that's the world we live in now. Like, I'm sorry, Josh Kroenke, they own what? Arsenal, the Las Vegas Raiders, whatever they're called. What are they called?
The hockey team?
The Colorado Rockies, and who else? They've won championships in NFL, NBA, and NHL. I don't know much about Arsenal. They own the Walmarts, and that seems to be still a big company, right? Like, I'm sorry, once you get to that level, that's the ball game, and it also shows why maybe Josh Kroenke shouldn't be the president of operations. Maybe you shouldn't put your son in charge of your basketball team. You should actually hire the best general managers and presidents available. But that's a separate argument. But yes, this is the world that we are in now. If you misspeak, people are only going to hear the headline. They're only going to follow the thing that you said wrong.
Absolutely. Anyway, that kind of wraps up the show. So thank you to everyone who sent us interactions in the chat and your super chats as well. And just a quick reminder, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be your one-stop shop for all the fun work that we do as part of this team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. We'll see you soon enough on another show. I think we've got Kimapa tomorrow and some of the other boys are going live. So you are completely sorted for the next week. And have a good one, folks. Enjoy yourselves. That's all for now. Goodbye.
Cricket boards actually make watching their games almost impossible now. I spend almost as much time trying to find where I can view it as I do actually following the action. That is why I use NordVPN. They let me find all the cricket I want to watch while protecting me from the nasty side of the internet. Nord will free your cricket matches. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/goodareas to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months on top. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Watch every match with NordVPN.